Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the MHP Show podcast. I'm your host, Derek Vickers. We talk about anything and everything that has to do with mobile home parks, operations, anything that we can think of about this crazy asset class. And today I have another guest with us, and we'll get into that in a minute here. But if you have not yet, please jump on Facebook and jump into our Facebook group. It's a sick group. We provide so much value in that group about this particular asset class. It's a great way to network. It's a great way to meet up with, whoever, investors or people you can partner with on deals. So please jump into our group. And also, if you haven't checked out any of our free stuff, by the way, Facebook group is Mobile Home Park Investing Pros. And any of our free stuff, our free ebooks and our underwriting webinar that teaches you everything you need to know about underwriting mobile home park. So you can check that out. The links will be in the show notes. But today, got a very special guest with us today. I've got Mr. Brett Swarts with Capital Gains Tax Solutions. And us as real estate investors, those two words, we've done all this freaking work. We sell the deal. And now we have to confront the animal. So Brett has some crazy, unique, awesome strategies to help us with those capital gains, which, we have to pay them, but we don't like it. But welcome, Brett.
Derek, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome, dude. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, you've been in real estate, but tell me a little bit about yourself, and then you can transition into like what it is that you actually do, and then we'll probably go off on tangents after that.
Yeah, I was born into a real estate entrepreneurial family, helping my parents build houses, mostly in the Bay Area of California. This was the late 80s, early 90s. And we fell in love with the sticks and bricks, and my brother and I were the first to graduate college. So we learned how to work really hard with our hands and our backs and tractors and building. But my parents said, hey, we want you guys to go to college. And so he graduated first, I graduated second. We didn't know we'd always stay in real estate, but that was kind of the journey along the way. I started out at Marcus and Millichap, helping people buy and sell multifamily properties as a broker. And that became my passion. I fell in love with the numbers, underwriting, adding value, negotiating, all the cool things about multifamily wealth. And it was great until it wasn't in the 2008 crash when the market hit the fan and a lot of people lost half or all of their wealth. And what we found was that the 1031 exchange is not always your friend. In fact, it can be your enemy because sometimes it puts you in too much debt, not enough liquidity diversification. It puts you in that shotgun wedding where you're getting engaged in 45 days, married in 180. But we thought we were the Navy SEALs of investment real estate. And in fact, some of the best training in the country. And so I learned about this strategy, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, that has changed everything for us. But for any of your listeners out there, I am not a CPA nor tax attorney. In fact, I'm an entrepreneur real estate person, perhaps like you as well, who loves real estate, but fell in love with a strategy that can solve problems, which ultimately, Derek, is what we're here for, right? Help people solve more problems so they can create and preserve more wealth, unlock freedom, and make an impact. And so, fast forward, I played basketball in college a little bit. So I had a scholarship. That was cool. My wife and I have 5 kids. In between all of that, I did some medical sales to try to keep the lights on with all the kids keep coming. I worked at Cheesecake Factory to keep the lights on during the 2009 to about 2011 area. So I was not always successful. I was a guy just trying to figure it out and who believed that this thing could change the industry forever. And so now we're on a mission to help people have what's called the Netflix way of exit planning versus the old 1031 exchange. We call that Blockbuster.
I like that. And that's interesting. But what are, you mentioned something about, a 1031 cannot be your best friend, but I know you touched on it briefly, but can you elaborate on that as some of the downfalls of a 1031?
Yeah, and I want you guys to all think about tax flow, cash flow, and debt flow. These are the 3 mindsets you need to approach with all of your wealth. And most of us are focused just on maybe cash flow, sometimes some tax flow, but rarely are they combining all 3 with the debt flow. Why people are in pain right now and why they were in pain during the 2008 crash is because they were not taking all 3 of these in account for, or they were, but they didn't know how to get out. Right. And so I'll give you an actual story. In 2007, I sat down with a gentleman named Steve. Steve. Now, Steve had multiple properties, multifamily, $50 million worth of assets. He had too much debt, not enough liquidity. He had done multiple 1031 exchanges, and he felt trapped. He goes, Brett, if I sell, I'm going to get crushed with California capital gains tax, which right now is like 37% minimum with the state and federal, right? Or if I overpay for a property, the property values are too high. I can't even get new debt on that. And so he felt trapped, and then all of a sudden the market stops and he loses everything. He goes bankrupt, loses all those properties. And so that's what happens sometimes. The 1031 exchange is great until it's not, right? There are times to sell and there are times to buy. For example, the last 5 years, mostly we haven't been buying a lot of assets because the values were so high. We have been putting money into multifamily lending or mobile home park lending, right? Or deals that were value add. We still bought deals. I'm not going to say we haven't bought deals, but we've been more so selective in those investments, right? Which actually had great bases, right? So the 1031 exchange forces you to take light kind of investment real estate and move it into light kind of investment real estate in a short period of time. Yep. And so what we came in here, we can do it with Bitcoin, we can do it with business sales, we can do it with any asset of any kind. And when that happens, you unlock, tons of opportunity for people to invest on their own timing, right? There's no timing restrictions. There's no like kind replacement requirement. You can go out of business into real estate, out of real estate into business, out of Bitcoin and build property, all tax deferred. And this is the part where people's brains explode because they go, wait, I've been in the industry forever. So have I, right? And we thought it was too good to be true until we actually looked at the law, understood how to execute the strategy. And this is now all we do. We do it across the whole country. Still hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. You were talking about something that, and then you froze up. You said you've been in the industry forever, and I'm assuming haven't heard about this particular strategy.
Yeah. I think that was it. I wasn't sure. Maybe that was just I kind of cut out there. Yeah. And so just most people haven't heard about this. And so I think the real thing is how do you connect tax flow, cash flow, and debt flow? And this is the one strategy that gets you out of debt, gets you tax deferred, gets timing on your side, and gives you the ability to invest into multiple asset types at any time. And this is why it's like Netflix, because you don't have to return the video. Is there ongoing fees? Yes, there's ongoing fees, but you don't have to drive in the snow or park or return in 3 days or it's checked out. There's just so much more flexibility. And as entrepreneurs and as real estate investors, we want and thrive on flexibility. In fact, what we loathe is being boxed in. And we don't want to be boxed in, right? We want to be able to take advantage of these deals that are at a discount. But if all of our capital is tied up in highly appreciated Bitcoin or businesses or real estate that the last two are illiquid, and all of our gains are locked up in there, we don't want to pay the tax to have to go into like a real estate fund with you, Derek, or a syndication with you. Now, to be fair, sometimes you can carve out a tick into a small 1031 into a syndication. Those are also difficult to figure out. And our strategy can go right into the syndication as a regular investor. You can also reset and get a new depreciation schedule the way we structure it by partnering with this trust that we'll tell you about how this whole thing works. But there's just so many cool things. The last one I'll leave with people is estate tax. A lot of us think that the holy grail is a stepped up basis. Okay, I'll just 1031 and swap until I drop, and then I'll get a stepped up basis and I'll be tax free. Not so fast. That's not tax-free. That's capital gains tax-free for your kids. It's not estate tax and death tax, right? Which the exemptions are going to be about 12 to 14 million married. So again, have a tax flow mindset. The government has spent $35 trillion. They have a spending problem, which means we have a tax problem. So we have to think more than just cash flow. We need to figure out estate tax, capital gains tax, and this $84 trillion transfer for the baby boomers for the next 20 years is the battle and the fight for the wealth of America and who has control of that. And so if we're going to help build jobs, build communities, mobile home park communities, multifamily, we've got to unlock the capital, not just raise it. Because if you just focus on raising it, it's going to be smaller chunks. We just closed a deal 2 weeks ago, $5.3 million exit for a client out of Utah selling an apartment complex. Well, guess what he wants to invest into? Mobile home park syndications and funds, multifamily syndications and funds, lending, right? He's going to diversify it across multiple ones versus what would he have done? Well, he might have had to 1031, right? Which he doesn't want to do, or he just doesn't even sell. He just says, forget it. So the capital is basically locked up. And now it's unlocked and it's pouring into deals, especially at a time, Derek, when capital, I think, is oxygen right now. And equity, I'll put it that way. Equity is oxygen. There's a lot of debt out there that's kind of available. And people are starving for breath. They're running out. And they're like, wow. And so we're just coming in and we're getting into great deals.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome, Brett. And just so I'm understanding this correctly, so you can essentially take whatever asset you're in, whatever gain, let's just say you have 5 million bucks of Bitcoin, or you just sold your business for 10 million or something. You can then take that and use this strategy and sort of use it as like a 1031. You can go tax free into another investment vehicle to a degree.
So let me clear it up a little bit. So we need to set it up prior to the close of escrow. Okay. So we set up prior to the close of escrow, unless you're using our best 1031 exit plan. And then we have a regular 1031 option and then the backup plan into the deferred sales trust, right? So that's number one. Number two, once it's in the trust, it's tax deferred in and out of investments, passive or active, stocks, crypto, businesses, real estate. Okay. Typically it's the trust itself operates at a kind of a neutral tax position. So it's typically not paying any tax the way we set it up. The actual client, if you're the seller, only pay tax as you receive payments. You guys know installment sales. We might as well jump into how this whole thing works, right?
Yeah.
If you, Derek, as a mobile home park owner, or buyer, you want to approach the seller and say, hey, will you sell on terms? I want to buy your $10 million mobile home park, but I need you to finance 8 of it. I'll give you 2, right? And then that scenario, you say, hey, we get you to defer your tax. And they're like, great, I get to defer my tax. The challenge with that is all of their money's locked up with you. Now, that's a good thing for you because you didn't have to get a bank, right? You had less down payment, those kind of things. But the essence of that is it's tax deferral is the way that you're going to try to structure that. Well, we're going to do the same concept here, except we're going to add a trust, but we're not going to force the seller to have to just finance you. Second, have the funds illiquid. Third, have the fear of having to take the property back from you. The worst thing for a mom and pop who's owned a mobile home park for 20 years, 25 years, who's finally selling, is to 3 years later, Derek fails or whoever bought it fails. They have to take it back. That's the worst scenario, right? So a lot of people actually shy away from the installment sale. So we say, hey, look, the concept of an installment sale is great, but well, guess what, Mr. Buyer? You come with all the cash. We're not going to finance you. They're going to finance the trust at closing. 100%. And the trust is going to sell the 10 million mobile home park to you the next day or the same day, simultaneous close. So the trust has no gain and it issues a promissory note to the seller. And the seller, let's say at 6 to 9% is the interest rate, but the funds hit Charles Schwab and it's completely flexible. The collateral can be secured against the biggest companies in the world. You as the buyer are gone. In fact, we just did it for a client named Gary out of Mobile Home Park, 5-park, $10 million portfolio, and helped him exit this exact situation. He didn't want a 1031. He wanted his time and energy back. He built up this portfolio. He had financial freedom, but didn't have time freedom. And so now we exit it. He paid off his debt, deferred, and it's beautiful. We just did a note. You'd like this deal, Derek. Someone was asking for a short-term loan. We said, what do you need to buy? They're like, we need it in 48 hours. We're like, okay, how much? $700,000. We said, okay. How about this? We'll give you $700,000 as a loan. You personally guarantee it. We'll give you up to 6 months, but we want $300,000 back within 6 months and the 700. If you pay it in 1 month or 6 months or 3 months, we don't care. Guess what? 90 days they paid it back. The 700 plus the 300, all tax deferred because it's within the trust. Like this is the beauty of this thing. Like it literally opens up massive opportunity to invest how you want to invest and negotiate how you want to negotiate.
Interesting. So, okay. So I'm just making sure I understand this correct. And I want our listeners to really get a grasp on this because this is very interesting to me. So like so essentially if I decide to sell off some of my interest in the portfolio or something, and I get 10 million bucks, I can put it in this trust basically, and then sort of allocate that how I would want to allocate that because the trust essentially defers the tax. I don't know how you got to get into how that works, but then I could take that 10 million bucks and say, hey, I'm going to go invest in, someone else's fund, someone else's syndication. Hey, I'm going to go buy some Bitcoin. Hey, I'm going to do some hard money lending, whatever it is. Am I tracking that correctly?
100%. And even better, you can do it on your own. So it's kind of like a self-directed IRA in a lot of ways. You can joint venture partner with the trust. And I'll give you a deal right now. It's actually going on. In fact, it's already closed, but they're doing this. So it's a multiple $1 million business sale, and they wanted to develop townhomes, about 70 units. Okay. In fact, I'm sorry, this is a different one. The one they wanted to develop was about 28 units. Okay. So they actually, it was 70 units. I'm sorry. But they were like multiple buildings. Okay. They do it in like tranches, like a couple 24s. Anyways, long story short, they sold the business, deferred the tax, and they used the capital to silently joint venture partner with them to build these units tax deferred. Okay. This is the part where my brain explodes, right? Because that's exactly what we want to do. No timing restrictions. It's kind of like they borrowed from the trust, but they can't technically borrow because it's a taxable event, but they can joint venture partner. They get a new depreciation schedule on a new LLC, the way we structure it, and they build out these units. And so they're building them now. They've actually completed all the units. They're selling them now. And so this is the beauty of the Deferred Sales Trust. A second one real fast. Client bought Bitcoin for 50,000 many years ago. The value of it went to 50 million. Okay. Never sold until they met us. The reason is A, capital gains tax. B, they didn't have a great place to place it. Well, where do they want to place it? Well, they wanted to use the capital as startup capital. They used to work for Google. And so they wanted to use it for startup capital to fund their business venture. What was their business venture? It was like a Khan Academy, like an online academy for kids. That was their heart and their passion, right? So they sold the Bitcoin at 54,000 a coin, deferred about 1.85 million of tax, and they used the capital to fund that business venture. Well, where did Bitcoin go from there? Well, it went up to like 65, 68, and then it dropped all the way down to 15,000, right? So they sold at a pretty good high. And at that time, this was before the last run up, and they deferred it, and they funded their business venture, all tax deferred this entire time, right? So this is how it works. This is why it's great for entrepreneurs. It's not just a passive person; it's also the active person, right?
Yeah, and then so like the trust is basically the partner or whatever in the deal, and so in that case, that other business venture that they went in, let's just say they put their 1.8 million in that, and now that's worth 5 million, and they sell that business. So then the 5 million goes back to the trust, and it's kind of the same thing. You can do it.
Yes, sir. Precisely. So you're collecting promissory notes on the exits rather than forcing yourself in a 1031 to go into a continuity strategy is the 1031. A deferred sales trust is an exit plan. And so it's one trust, multiple promissory notes. Right.
Yeah. Well, I don't understand that with the promissory note. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So a promissory note, remember, it's just a seller carryback, right? So if Derek has a mobile home park for 15 million bucks in Florida that he's selling tomorrow, then his basis is zero. Let's imagine you fully depreciate it, right? And you have no debt on it. You have massive tax, and you could do a seller carryback. And so a buyer could show up and say, Derek will give you 5 down, would you carry 10? And you say, sure. And you would be issued a promissory note. You sold it for 15.
Correct.
They give you 5 million down, you get a $10 million promissory note. In this scenario, we say, do not finance the buyer, have the buyer come with the 15 million, but the trust will you'll finance the trust for 15 million. The trust will sell it for 15 million. So the 15 million hits the trust, and the seller's issued a $15 million promissory note, right? That's the whole idea.
I see. Yeah. Got it. Yeah. I was just trying to understand how the promissory note, so even when I'm still trying to make sure that I understand that part and how that works, because all this stuff gets a little, up here in the clouds a little bit, but it blows my mind really that you can do this. So in the case you were saying, like the Bitcoin guys, they put the 1.8 million in the business, and so then the trust would have issued a promissory note there at that point.
Oh, so let's make sure we clarify it. So the first exit was 5 million into the trust, and they're issued a $5 million promissory note. So once the money's at Charles Schwab, they actually put 4 of the 5 million into a new LLC, brand new LLC that's partnered up with them. Yeah. The trust is a silent partner. The trust still owes the 5 million. It puts the 4 million into the new LLC. It still owes all of that money. Yeah. It's just invested into a joint venture partnership with them, which happens to be a business. It needs to be a business or investment. It needs to be real estate or a business. It can't be like a primary home, right? And so fast forward, that $4 million goes in, and let's say it turns into $24 million over 10 years. It's a tech company and it explodes, right? It's awesome. Yeah. It's a $20 million gain. What happens? Well, they sell the business for $24 million. They got to pay back the original $4 million. Plus a preferred return. We typically will mirror the promissory note. Let's call it like an 8% pref on the 4. And then 20% of that also goes into the trust. And the other 80% can go to the managing member or the sweat equity or the GP on that scenario, right? Mm-hmm. They're the ones that are doing all the work. And so you say, so the trust put up all of the money. The GP did all of the work, right? It was an 80-20 with the pref on the money, and rinse, wash, repeat. The difference of that amount, let's say it's like 16 million. Let's say it's 20. Let's say it's like 18 million, right? That could be a second promissory note if they want it to be. So you have your first one at 5, your second one at, let's say, 18. You have to do all the math depending on the timing of the pref, right? But that's essentially it. Like every time you exit, you're not going to go to Blockbuster, because 1031 doesn't work for business sales, doesn't work for Bitcoin, doesn't work for primary homes, and it's typically very difficult with real estate unless you have that deal lined up, which you do great. We'll give you a high five, go for it. Instead, you use the deferred sales trust for these exits, and you move your position into a lender. You lend it to the trust, but then you immediately turn around and partner with the trust and let it fund you on your next opportunity. But that next opportunity might be tomorrow, or might be 180 days, or might be 360 days. In fact, we had clients sitting. We did a $13 million exit for clients out of San Diego. We sold just before about two years plus a little bit of dates after that, before the interest rates shot up, right? So we say they built $4 million car wash in San Diego. And it's a place called Chula Vista. Used to be an old taco stand. And this guy, they approached the guy and they're like, hey, this taco stand, we'll put you inside of our car wash and we'll, triple your sales. He's like, sweet. And then they bought all the acreage and they partnered with the taco stand guy. They built this amazing car wash. They were all in for about $4 million. Well, they sold for $13.5 million. In California, that's like a 40% tax with the depreciation recapture. So we sold, they paid off debt, they deferred their tax, and they've been sitting mostly in multifamily lending for the last 2 years, making about 10%. Second, one of them, they bought some Bitcoin at 40,000 a coin, right? So they got in at a good basis over there. Some of them buying these hotels that are discount syndications. They're buying some multifamily syndications. And so we're just dollar cost averaging as the market in real estate drops. But we waited about a year and a half, 2 years for the market to shift. So now we're just picking off opportunities.
Interesting. And then on the trust itself, like the individual that's selling the asset or whatever, they own that trust?
No, if they owned it, Derek, then they just sold it to themselves and it's taxable. Just like if you sent your funds to a qualified intermediary that you owned, it's no longer third party. It's taxable, right? So Capital Gains Tax Solutions is that third party unrelated trustee. Now let's talk about controls and protection, right? Because you do have to give up some control in order to do this. But number one, funds never move without your approval. Funds never move without your approval or your signature. Number two, funds are typically held at like a Charles Schwab at first, right? Biggest financial institution in the world. Number three, we have third-party tax preparers that do the full profit and loss. This is like a C Corp tax return. 4, we have third-party, the actual tax and legal team that does all the legal work. We have all those things in place. 5, a lot of people partner with the trust, and now they're opening up the LLC bank account and doing all of those things. So lots of controls in place, lots of third parties to keep the protection and the integrity of this whole thing. Funds are never commingled in other accounts. And so, but you do have to give up some control. So that's me as the trustee. That's our role. Third party unrelated trustee. We get paid recurring fees based upon the AUM. That's our model. But we work with people to execute this, right? This is not just a tax deferral plan. It's really a wealth building team, right? Where we combine tax flow, cash flow. We consider ourselves real estate investment advisors that work with great groups like a Derek Vickers to go into mobile home park opportunities. Mobile home park and multifamily are our favorites, right? And we diversify versus the traditional stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Their diversification is, I'll put maybe 10 or 20% in real estate and let us do all of this. Well, we feel like it's the opposite. Go 80% into real estate and then maybe 20% over there. That's just our personal preference. Do we have some clients that are going 100% into the stock market? Yeah. And that's, they can choose that if they want that. And we work with financial planners, some of the best in the country, to manage that. And do I think a balanced approach is probably good? Yes, right? But there's time to be in real estate heavy and there's time to be out of real estate, right? And it's dynamic. And that's why we want to have a team to execute this like a family office.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think that was the disconnect for me, but that makes a lot of sense since you're the third party trustee. And making sense of how that works. So that makes a lot of sense. Is there, and then you mentioned like fees and stuff. And so what is that typically like if I've got $10 million and you're the trustee there, like talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, let's just do a $10 million exit, okay, to keep it really simple. There's a one-time fee. It's the tax attorney CPA, my business partner. They're going to charge about 1.5% on the first million. and then 1.25 on anything above, right? That's generally speaking, right? Okay. So that's a one-time fee that covers lifetime audit defense, perfect legal track record, over 27 years, thousands of closes, over 29 audits. All the audits have been no change, no findings. Most of the audits in California. Okay. Second is the actual AUM, right? The AUM, right? So what AUM is the accounts or the amounts under management, right? So if you had debt on that $10 million asset, you pay off the debt or commissions or closing costs. Let's just say, $5 million hits the account after all of that's said and done, right? Then we would charge on that $5 million about 1.5% to 2% on a recurring annual basis, right? But generally we can return somewhere around 7, 8, or 9% compounding net of those recurring fees, right? We're going to go to Derek and say, hey, Derek, what's your average rate of return over any 5-year term? And you might say, Brett, we're somewhere between 7 and 11% cash on cash, plus we'll double your money in 3 to 5 years, right? Cool. Right. And so our goal is to get at least, 7, 8, 9% compounding net of the recurring fees based upon their risk tolerance, right? It's not a guarantee, and they have to approve of the investments, but that's kind of the model there. Our minimum is $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain. Okay. Very important. Because if it's not big enough, that means the tax isn't big enough. And that means the model it doesn't really make sense. So you need to have at least $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain per transaction. Okay. If you have that, then we found it's a home run no matter what state you're selling in. If you say, well, Brett, I got one at 700 and one at 600. Can I combine those two? Yeah, you could, if you're going to do that in a short period of time. But that'd be the only kind of caveat there. But otherwise, that's it. We work on a conditional basis. So we'll do all the planning, all the trust build out, all the analysis of your deal. And if for some reason you don't want to do it, or if the deal doesn't work out, you owe us zero. And so we want to get paid when the actual transaction closes.
Interesting. And so let's just say, you're at the end of the party. You're like, hey, the party's over. I sold my property for 10 million. I gave my 10 million to Brett. We invested it. Now it's worth 50 million, 15, 20 years down the road, whatever. And I'm like, all right, I'm ready to exit, cash out. I want my cash. What does that look like, and what's that process look like?
Yeah, number one, you have a promissory note. So you have like a bank does. If you have a house and you have a 30-year mortgage on it, and it's a 30-year note, right? You're paying principal and interest or whatever you worked out with them. And then there's a balloon payment that's due, right? So, or unless you refinance. And so we typically do 10-year terms, and every 10 years you can renew for 10 years, and you can pass it to your kids, the promissory note, via a living trust, and they can step into your shoes and continue the tax deferral. That's DST 1.0. On 2.0, it's reserved for 10, 20, $100 million plus deals where you're dealing with a huge estate tax, right? Death tax. So we're going to eliminate the death tax with our DST 2.0 without any charity, life insurance, or gifting required, and the children of the beneficiaries of the trust, and it passes to them estate tax and capital gains tax free upon the death. Okay. So you say, well, why don't you just always use the 2.0? Well, the 1.0 is much more flexible for the payout, meaning it can be you can refinance it quicker and make it turn on or turn off with me as the trustee. And so it's a more flexible strategy. Both are the same cost. Both can be both in both investments, but it's important to understand that the 2.0, once the payment starts, it doesn't stop, and it pours out. And when it pours out, you're paying cap gains and ordinary income when it pays out. On the 1.0, most of our clients are structured with just interest only payments. So if it's 10 million at 8%, 800,000, they might do $500,000 payout and let the other 300 accrue, right? They might even do zero for a couple of years. We had one client sold an $8 million deal in California, and they relocated to Nevada and established residency. And because it's ordinary income tax, it's based upon the state in which you reside. And they were able to get a nice little tax benefit, a lower amount because they're in a new state. So there's some tax engineering that we will look at, and it's like a Rubik's Cube. We'll kind of move it around to see what's a good fit. But sometimes, and oftentimes, we're doing a 1.0 and a 2.0, right? But there's typically no more than 2 trusts per family or per married couple.
Yeah. Got it. That makes sense. And what would I know you suggest, you mentioned a second ago, like if it's, $1 million or less, it's not worth it. Like when should someone consider this as an option?
Yeah, again, you need to set it up prior to the close of escrow, or get with me, but prior to doing the 1031, so you can use the 1031 best 1031 plan that we have set up. If you need to spend it all on your personal stuff, right, Derek? So if you show up and be like, man, I'm selling a $10 million business, Bitcoin or real estate, but I really just want to buy that primary home on the beach in Miami. Well, it's not a good fit. Now, if you said, I really want to buy an Airbnb, for 6, 7, 8 million bucks on the beach in Miami, cool. That's perfect. Right. And now you're living somewhere else and you're actually Airbnb-ing it. Awesome. Right. So it basically goes from personal versus business. Because why does the government allow this? Because they want to incentivize, business growth, investments, which creates more jobs, which creates more tax revenue. So they're actually the biggest winners here, right? This is why we do have IRAs and 401ks. This is why we have 1031 exchanges. It incentivizes or cost segs and bonus depreciation. By the way, one little caveat. A lot of people get this thing confused with the Delaware Statutory Trust. They think, I already know about the DST. You think about the Delaware 1031. It's like the Hollywood video to the Blockbuster. Did you have Hollywood videos growing up, Derek?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's just another form of 1031. The difference is you have no control, no liquidity, no diversification, huge fees, 7 to 10 year holds typically, beautiful properties and beautiful locations, typically around like 5% return. By the way, we still do Delaware. So we work with advisors that do. We have a special way of using those to extinguish debt over basis. Okay, it's kind of another topic, but the point is you really got to clarify your tax flow, cash flow, debt flow, where you're going. I'd make sure you identify your problem with the state tax if you have it. And then make sure you have the strategy that unlocks the freedom of your capital to make an impact or have flexibility to invest. And so hopefully that answers the question. But that's and by the way, we wrote a book on this too. So if people want to know, it's called Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. You can find that on Amazon. We have Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank in the book, hit #1 bestseller on Amazon, which is pretty cool. And it's basically my entire story of this, because when people hear this, their heads explode because they think they have the best people in the business helping them. But at the end of the day, it's not the how, it's the who, right? Like, who are the people that have executed this on a high level that can help you get to where you're at? And we want to be a part of that dream team, right? To help you guys out and bring in your advisors. We'll educate them. We'll have them sign the NDAs. But then ultimately we'll help you execute the DST if we can earn your business.
Yeah. That's awesome, Brett. And thanks for sharing that with the with your book. Do you think that, there's all kinds of like political rhetoric and things about, closing down, you can't do a 1031 anymore. Like, you can't do this, like all these tax strategies, I think it's more talking points than anything. But do you ever think that they'll actually do something to get rid of some tax strategies like this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think Biden's latest proposal was he's going to take federal cap gains tax from 20 to 44%. Whew. He was going to cap the 1031 at $1 million married couple, 500 single on the gain. And he was going to eliminate the stepped up basis, which literally would change the fabric of America forever. Like, it's really brutal what is actually being proposed. So whether or not, we'll find out. Biden's no longer in the running now, right? If Kamala takes up that mantle and runs with it, versus if Trump gets in, right? We'll see. That's a big difference there, I believe. I think the 1031 is probably more because they kind of really see it, a lot. It's more in the news. On our strategy, we go back over 100 years as an installment sale. The actual strategy goes back to almost 28 years at this point. They're not even looking at it. And I think part of why we believe our strategy is safer than most is because during the 1920s, during like the Depression and all that stuff, part of what happened is these banks seized up, Derek, and they needed to encourage private people to be banks. Well, how do you do that? You can't force someone to lend to somebody, but you can tax incentivize them to do that, right? They're doing an installment sale. So Understanding the nature of this, like the installment sale method is foundational to our economic society, right? So with that being said, could they still do something? They could. Have they? They haven't, and we've gone through all the audits but yeah, all you can do is go with what you'd planned today, execute on it. If they change something, most likely they would grandfather everybody else in who's done it. But let's hope that they don't take away these things because, America's counting on being able to be tax incentivized to build wealth versus, not. And then everything just kind of stops.
Yeah. It's interesting. And it would be crazy. I can't even imagine cap gains at 40 or 44%, whatever. Like, can you imagine that? You're right. That would literally change the real estate landscape forever. I mean, I wouldn't sell anything. Why would you sell something?
And that's just federal. I mean, if you add another 13.3 for the state of California, think about that. That's 44 plus 13.3. That's 57% plus Obamacare tax. That's 61%.
That's
so, I
wild.
mean, it's wild, right? It's wild. You do all the work, you do all the risk, you do all the sweat equity just to sell it. And the government takes 61% if you're in California, right? And then New York, New Jersey are just as bad. Like, you're like, what? Like, my 61% partner on the upside is doing nothing. In fact, they're doing rent control. They're all the red tape. They're actually going against me. They should pay me an extra 61% just for doing it. They should say, hey, you made 10 million. We'll pay you 6.1 million just for doing it all, right? But it's the opposite. They go against you, they work against you, and then they say, oh, and then I want the 61%. It's a disaster. Our government is proven to be and not responsible with the money. And this is literally the battle for the wealth of America. We call it the reverse Tea Party. It's a battle for our freedom of America. 240 plus years ago, what was the fight, Derek? Remember? We said, hey, we want representation and rights for the taxes we're paying. Okay. Yep. And we fought it, we won it, and we built, with the Lord's blessing, 240 years later, the greatest, most successful, prosperous country in the world perhaps has ever known. Okay. And now over these next 18 years, these baby boomers, which is the largest mass kind of consolidation of wealth that we've ever known, right? It's tied to 3 asset types: primary homes, businesses, private equity, and commercial real estate. And 50% of all wealth is that right there. And there's 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every single day. Okay. And there's about 80 million in the US alone. So think about that. If they don't have flexible, diversified, liquid, don't be forced into debt strategies, then they're not going to sell. It's going to get crushed with the estate tax potentially, right? Or they do sell, and they get crushed with the capital gains tax. And if the government gets the hands on this 84 trillion, it's reversed. We literally went back to a government that's going to seize a lot of the control and take away the freedoms. And that's the scary part, right? It's like we can have people in the White House, but if they don't see this and actually give us the freedom to move the flexibility with the capital through tax strategies, then it's a lot. We believe the kind of the future of America is on the line here. So.
Yeah, agreed. And I think it's, unfortunately, the pitch is, hey, your problems are the wealthy's problems. And so we'll tax them more and it'll solve your problems, which is clearly not the case. And, the thought process behind this stuff is just a little bit ridiculous if you think about it.
Yeah, it's different values and different ideas, and their ideas is proven to be broken, right? We're never going to tax our way out of this. It's only ever going to be through building the American job market, the industry, and that actually creates more tax revenue, right? That has been proven over and over and over again. But yeah, it's a battle of ideas. That's why we vote, and let's hope those that do get in office are passing laws that are going to push us towards prosperity and abundance mindset versus just tax the rich and distribute how they see fit, right? So and call it generosity. That's the worst part, right? It's like, oh, be generous. Well, it's easy to be generous with someone else's money, right? Yeah. Be generous with your own money, right? You're happy to put more money to the government to go, but yeah. So that's the battle. It's a different value, different mindset, different ideas, and hopefully the one with more prosperity and abundance wins. Yeah, and the government's always so responsible with the funds too. So I definitely you want to give them more money, right? Yeah, right. That's the battle. The best conversation breaker with a mom and pop seller of mobile home parks, that they're like, well, I don't want to pay capital gains. And I'm like, why wouldn't you want to do that, man? The government's so responsible with your money. And then it's like, boom, the biggest icebreaker. Like, oh, blah, blah, blah. They start going off. And then we can get in the conversation about selling their deal. But it's just, it's funny. It's funny. Last question here. Like, what would you, to kind of play the other side of this, like, what would you say? I know in everyone's, situation is different, but like, what would you, why? I'm assuming that people don't do this with you because they don't want to give up the control. Am I seeing that correctly, or why people don't want to do it, or they just don't understand it? I'll give you the 3 biggest objections. Number one is Brett, like, I don't understand how my CPA doesn't know about this. Yeah, I need to get their blessing, or I need them to say yes. Like, how have they told me about it? And so the emotionally, if they're not like on top of, really on top of their tax flow mindset and looking at these kind of things, they're selling let's say a 10, 20, $30 million, $50, $100 million deal. And that CPA has been helping them file their tax returns, do their profit and loss. They've been that family health practitioner who's given them all the health checks and the flu shots. Well, now they need ACL surgery, right? Or a knee replacement. And this is the part where it doesn't compute. Emotionally, they're stuck to the family practitioner, but they would never go in and ask their family practitioner to do an ACL surgery. I played basketball in college on scholarship, which was cool. I blew my ACL after I signed my scholarship.
Where'd you play?
2 weeks after. I played at a small school called Point Loma Nazarene down in San Diego for a year. And then I got a scholarship to a place called William Jessup University, private Christian school out in Sacramento. It's like an NAI Division II kind of school. So so I played there, and I blew my ACL. Well, when I went to my family practitioner, I'll never forget. He did like the ACL check. You ever see the doctor where they grab the knee and they kind of like check to see? And he literally tells me, "Oh, you're good. You'll be back in a couple of weeks." I'm like, "Oh, okay, sweet. I got my scholarship. I'm back, baby." And my brother was like, "Dude, you should go get a MRI just in case, because these doctors have been known to miss it, and they might think it's on there, but it's not really there." So I dismissed him the first time, went to the doctor, said, "Doctor, can I get an ACL MRI?" He said, "No, you don't need it." I went home again. The next time, my brother was like, "No, no matter what you do, go in there and get it." So I'm back for the third time. Finally, lets me go get it. I get the MRI, come back, and guess what? My ACL is completely ruptured. Right. So had I had all my emotional, like, "Oh, this guy knows," I could have came back and completely ended my career forever. Instead, I went to a specialist who's done thousands and thousands and thousands of surgeries. He did Chris Webber's knee. Right. And I'm like, he is the guy to put my ACL together after the MRI. And so why I say that is you need to know that your general practitioner has not done thousands and thousands and thousands of transactions like this. And so you can't expect them to be like, "Oh yeah, just go for it. Go get that ACL surgery. Go do that DST." So that's the first thing. However, I would say this: when you bring those CPAs to our calls, 99% of them join us. They join us because guess what? The person who's doing it is a tax attorney and a CPA. Okay. And he will walk them through it. We'll walk them through it, and they join us. So that's the first thing, the legality. Number two is control, right? As real estate and as entrepreneurs, we want ultimate unilateral control. But guess what? You're already giving up control when you go to a 1031 company. You're already giving up control if you do IRAs or 401ks, right? You're giving up control all the time. And so you can live in fear and say like, "Oh no, something bad's going to happen." Or you can live in faith and say, "Look, I'm going to delegate stuff to my team. I'm going to delegate to these professionals, and I'm going to ultimately unlock even more control and freedom," right? Because what? 20, 30, 40, 50% of the proceeds of the government's anyways. So you can have unilateral control, Derek, of 60% or 70%, or you could have partial control through the trust and the promissory note. And so just understanding those things. The last one is fees. The DST has got to be an investment and not an expense, right? And so once you understand that it's legal, the controls in place, and that the trustee is an asset to your team, and that how to make a DST an investment and not an expense, then I call it the big domino. The big domino falls over, and people say yes. That's just, we have a very high close ratio. Last point is time. Time squeezes decisions. And so the earlier we can find people and educate them, the more likely they are to close, right? Versus the last 21 days, we've had deals close in like 7-10 days and stuff, but no one likes to work on that fire drill, right? We like to really get to know people, they get to know us. This is why we're on the podcast, to try to spread the message of the DST.
Yeah. And I appreciate that because, I don't know that much about the Delaware Statutory Trust. But that's the first thing I think of when you say DST. And so like, I didn't even know something like this existed. And I'm sure some of our listeners are in the same boat. So I appreciate you coming on and dropping some knowledge with us, Brett. How can people find you before we go? And
yeah, so you go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can also go to brettswarts.com, and that will give you access to the best 1031 plan, Capital Gains Tax Solutions, my Instagram, LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff. and our coaching as well if you want to get coaching. But you can also just pick up the book. It's a great place to start by going to Amazon and just looking at building a capital gains tax exit plan. Buy the book, start reading the book. We have our YouTube channel that has tons of content. If you go to the playlist, we have all the playlists with tons of great information that dives deep on this. And we're also launching our second podcast. It's called Build It to Billions podcast. That's launching on August the 20th. And depending on when you're listening to this, it might already be launched. And so check that one out. We're going to have billionaires, millionaires, and entrepreneurs. And we're going to be talking about stewardship over ownership, which those are the bigger ideas that help people to dive into this intense, tax talk, because it is intense. But you've got to do the planning, and you got to hire the team. You got to do the work. Otherwise, again, the government's going to be not such great stewards with the capital. So,
yeah, for sure. Well, cool, Brett. I appreciate you coming on, and everyone, thank you for watching the MHP Show. Please like and subscribe. We're all over the place. You can find me on any social media platform. I'm definitely not hard to find. Leave a comment, and we will see you all next week. Peace.